here. A rule of thirds kind of tells us that when we have the height of a tree, generally we like our first branch to be about a third of the way up. So showing about a third of that initial trunk line is one of the ways we start making it feel like a tree. If we start having branches too low where we don't see the trunk, our brains start saying, "Ew, that must be a shrub," because everything's so low. Now when you come and look at this, one of the things I hope you'll see is that there's a balance in this tree from trunk to branch, from branch to secondary, from secondary to tertiary, and on down to twig. So when you look at this tree, one of the things I hope you don't really get a sense of is those real drastic transition points where it's obvious a trunk has been chopped to where that rate of taper changes, and to where when you turn it, you kind of go, oh, okay, that's where that tree was made. In this case, once this big callus here heals over, as that lower part of the trunk adds more texture from growing in the pot, those transitions will even blend in. So for this tree, the way I train that is absolutely by being relentless at it. As buds came out, I would put anchor wires to direct the branch to come out laterally. And like on the olive, I would let them run. But the difference is when after letting them run, when I would cut them, you'll notice my cuts are very deep in the tree. My cuts weren't out here. I started my cut right here because when I saw this trunk, I imagined, okay, for this size of a tree, I can sense a silhouette this long. So the minute I said the silhouette from the trunk to here, then what I did is I took that space and I divided it into thirds. A tree like this, the reason a silhouette has taper is because it allows light penetration. As branches lay down, what happens is the weight of branches, as in nature, as this volume masses up here, the weight actually starts drawing branches down too. And as branches start drawing down, that's where all of a sudden some of this sublayering comes into effect. So like when you see a contour of a branch, what you're actually seeing, and here's where a little bit of refinement on this tree could be made, is by coming in and do a little bit of wiring just to separate out some of these masses of foliage in here. So as you start creating some of this space, what happens is now all your tips start to find better spacing. So when you see this Yopon holly and this variegated privet, one of the things that I really, when you come in and look at these guys, I really want you to pay attention to the interior of the tree. Because if you'll notice in there, there's nothing in that interior. And that allows you to look inside, look up underneath, and see those layers of distributed, divided, ramified, tapering, moving twigs. And the minute you see that, you will feel the age of the tree. One of the things you'll notice is the distribution of all this mass. And part of what I've done for both of these trees is I've actually gone through before the show and plucked out leaves from the interior, just so you can see every fork in there. As you look in and as you look at a branch and you see one fork to another fork, to another fork, to another fork, every division, every fork that you will see in your brain will translate to another year of growth. Because every time a bud breaks out, we read that as so here's another Yopon holly. Now this is a tree. I actually grew in the ground from a cutting. You can see many places where in developing the girth on the tree, big branches were cut away, and in many cases they completely healed over. But there have been many cuts to develop taper. You can see, there's a major cut here. I brought this branch up. Now Yopon holly, they grow in a real rigid fashion. So unfortunately, this top of this tree grew so straight that, to me, this tree grows up, it comes over, and then goes up again. That looks a little artificial. So I've got a turnbuckle here, and what I'm trying to do is put some tension to get this line angled over. But I brought this tree along because I defoliated this about a month ago to force this tree into really tight budding. Now, this isn't an unusual process for us. You know, we can take trees, we can really strip them down, we can force this budding inside. And you can see the volume of budding here is really giving me a lot of twig. There's a couple things that I have to do to this tree to make sure that the quality is carried forward. One, where I've gotten some better back budding in here, I'll come in, like on this branch for example, and I'll start cutting the end of this extended cylinder off to lose some of that extended line. And what that'll do, and maybe, let's see if I can show it up here. So, right here, we've got a line that's kind of boring. So the minute, now that this bud is sprouted, I can come and take this segment off and get rid of that extra non-tapering extension here. And so that'll give us a shorter segment here. It'll give us some taper coming off here. And this cut too should also stimulate some more buds back here. So sometimes we have trees that you know, we have to do some interim steps to. There's also some areas here, like for example, here's a branch that was really heavily stubbed. And I got a really nice bottom bud coming out of here. So again, I'll take this top stub off and I'll just go with this bottom branch because the taper, the movement, the ramification, it's a much. So one of the things I will come in on this tree and I'll come along in here, and where I have places where the branches are really clustered tight, or if I have buds coming too much to the top or curling to the inside, what I'll do is I'll just pluck them away. And I won't even let the tree put its energy in the extension of those buds. Because if I eliminate, say with the buds that broke on here, and this is always true with trees, not everything that a tree gives you in response to work you do is usable. It's always only a percentage that's usable. So maybe out of all the buds that set on this, maybe about 40% are really going to be usable here. So what I'm going to do is I will go through and I will rub or snip away the 60% of the buds. The ones that if I've already got a twig that came in the crotch, that will obscure that little fork. If I've got two nice branches here and I've got a bunch of stuff coming up off the top, I'll rub them off because I probably don't want those twigs to thicken. If I've got this nice acute branch angle radiating out, I don't want a bud break poking back toward the center of the tree to grow in there and give me some thickening because that'll change the rate of taper. So again, I will look at the buds in here and I will pick the buds that come out at acute angles. I will pick pairs and I will build stem by stem, twig by twig. I will build my branching that way.